In this video I'm going to be talking about how to find the domain and range for a relation. First of all, we have to know what the domain and range actually are. In the domain we can think about a couple of ways. We can think of the domain as the set of input values, or sometimes it's more convenient to think about it as a set of x values, which is what's going to happen most likely in this class. Or if you're in a science class, it's the set of independent variables, okay? So the inputs for the independent variable. If we're talking about range, we're typically talking about the output values, what you get out of like an experiment or out of some kind of study or whatever we're talking about. That's typically related to the y, or the dependent variable if we're talking about a science class. So let's take a look at a couple of example problems. The first one, we have a table here. If we want to find the domain and range of the table that's here, then what we need to do is figure out what the independent variable or the input value is. And in this case, we know that if we were to go look at the year, we could get the output value of a first-class stamp, how much it costs according to the year. So we know that the year is the input value, and we know that the rate is the output value. Now the reason we know that is because it doesn't make any sense for us to say, well, if we knew how much the stamp cost, then we could go back and look at the year. It doesn't work that way. It's, listen, we're going to go look at what year it is and then figure out what the stamp costs based on the year. So the year is the input value. In that case, then, that means for this example, the domain, and we list it with these fancy looking parentheses here, these brackets, and we just list all of the input values. So we're going to list off 1900, 1920, 1940, 1960, 1980, and 2000. And then we end with these special parentheses again. The range then is just going to be the set of y values, and so we're going to list every unique number that we have here. We do not need to list 2 twice. We can list it once, and that's good enough. We have 3, 4, 15, and 33. And what we're saying is the possible inputs that we have, the possible years that we looked at are listed at the top. The possible rates that we found are listed down bottom in the range. Now we can do the same thing here if we're just given a set of points. So let's take a look at something like this. We'll do it right here. Okay. On this, we're talking about, here's our x, y coordinates for each one. And so basically what we have to do to find the domain is we're just going to look at all the x coordinates. So we're looking at the first number in each set of parentheses. There's our domain right there. And we're just going to list them off just like we did last problem. So we start with our fancy parentheses here. We go 100, 120, 140, 160, 180. The range then is just going to be all of the y values we have, and we only need to list unique ones. So you can see 5 occurred twice, we only need to list it once. 6 occurs twice, we only need to list it once. And 12 occurs once. So our range, it looks like, has much less values, and that's okay. They don't have to have an equal number of values. Let's look at one more problem. What happens if we are given a graph? Okay? Let's say that we're given a graph, and so for this problem, you can see I've already labeled the points, and this is just to save time. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, and then I went through, and my first step to solving this problem, to finding the domain and range. Remember, domain relates to the x coordinates, range relates to the y coordinates. So I went through, and I listed for all 5 points, I listed their coordinates out, and you can see them right here. Once I have this, it's just like that table I had in the last example. All I have to do for the domain is list all of the unique x coordinates that I have. So I'm talking here, my domain is going to be -3, +3, 0, -2, and then I have +3 again, but that's a repeat, so I don't need to list it. Typically what you want to do, though, now that I have that, we're going to go through and we're going to make things nice and neat for your teacher, okay? And we're going to go through and do this again. This time we're going to list them in order from greatest to least. So the domain is -3, -2, 0, +3. The range, all we're going to do is the same thing for the y values then. As you might have guessed, it looks like 3 is a repeat. So we only need to list it once. We have 1, we have -2, and we have -5. And then we're going to go through once again, and just to be nice for the teacher, we're going to list those in order from greatest to least. So it looks like we have -5, -2, 1, and 3. If you can do this, if that makes sense, then you should be ready for the homework.